Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Off the Rails podcast. I'm your host, Gregory, and once again, 2 weeks in a row, I'm joined by my fellow co-host, Rem. Would you like to say hi, Rem?
Hello, everyone.
All right, and I know the last episode I kind of lost a part of the ending that would be a nice preview for this episode, but that is fine. Because thankfully we both remember what we were talking about previously. So today we're gonna start into a little bit of a dive into the topic of guns, gun safety, gun ownership, Second Amendment, things like that. Um, would you like me to start, Ram?
Go ahead.
Okay. So obviously, the audience doesn't know what we talked about last week about guns because that clip is in the void now. But pretty much, I wouldn't say it's to the level of the pro-life, pro-choice thing that we had, but it's still a slight difference in uh, stands. For example, I am more like for me, I would say Second Amendment is something important, but I think not every single gun should be banned, as I said last week. But I do think that there should be a ban on in terms of guns like weapons of war, like assault rifles or like machine guns. I think you said something. Was the term that you used to describe those guns?
Oh, let's see. What was the term I used? Basically, I agree that we shouldn't have civilian ownership of anything that can kill indiscriminately.
There we go.
If
Kill
the idea is
indiscriminately.
that guns primarily are for self-defense, then obviously something that kills indiscriminately is overboard. It's not going to be any more effective for self-defense, but it will be more likely to, harm innocent people.
Correct. Yes, and that is where we once again strongly agree on. Like for me, I think like having a rifle, having a shotgun, and a pistol is fine, but I don't think people should have, like I mentioned earlier, like weapons like assault rifles that you can just hold the trigger and it just sprays, or anything, or anything like higher than like a pistol or a shotgun. Like maybe some advanced guns is okay, but I would say anything that could be considered a weapon of war should not be uh, allowed for civilians to use. And one of the points that we talked about, or that I mentioned, was that um, like I heard someone say that um, it's it's good to have like weapons of war because in case the military goes in and for some reason like there's we get a like a like a tyrant in charge, right? And the government starts to oppress the people and or try to attack us. And the person said that it would be more effective if civilians were allowed to have those types of guns. But as after he said that, I don't think I necessarily said that said this, but what I was thinking after was that if the military wanted to go after us, I don't think we would stand much of a chance. Like, I
Yeah.
don't think a machine gun against a tank would be like the most effective way. And you can say, oh, we can have explosives and stuff. And I'll say, well, explosives are such an easy thing to use, like grenades. You just pull the pin, and in most cases, and that's even more dangerous in terms of indiscriminately killing people. Someone can just like get a grenade, pull the pin out, and then throw it at like a window or something. Um, that just leaves us more open to more, more things like school shootings and innocent people dying for no good reason. And yeah, like my point is, if the military wanted to like defeat us, they could physically in terms of power. Like that's kind of like what the cost of having a military is, that they have weapons that civilians shouldn't have, but also the weapons they are very powerful and dangerous as well. But once again, that is just the cost of having a military, which I think for most of the time, in most places, even outside of Earth, if there are other civilizations, having a military that can protect uh, against intruders is incredibly important for the survival of any species, really.
Yeah, so again, in agreement here. I mean, if you want to say, so ostensibly the original idea behind the Second Amendment was that we can defend ourselves from military, but weaponry has advanced so far since then that the only way that would really be feasible is if you go all the way. So, civilians can have tanks, civilians can have, chemical weapons, civilians can have nuclear bombs. That would be the only feasible way we could actually protect ourselves from the military if, as Gregory said, they, we get a tyrant in charge, or, the way the US government is designed, several tyrants in charge, really, and uh, they use the military against the citizenry. Yeah, that's the only way we're going to have a chance.
Yeah, and that's just like blasphemy. Like the military is like as not the perfect thing that it can be sometimes. It has people in charge that to oversee it, to make sure things are regulated. The military is a specific group that is much more regulated than your average citizen, I believe. It's a more organized group as well. Obviously, you kind of need that kind of stability when you have such a powerful group um, as a military in your society. And yeah, like the average citizen would not like is not under watch or under scrutiny or under supervision as what I hope the military is. So I think giving people all these like weapons, as Rem said, that could kill indiscriminately would be uh, just terrible for everyone involved. I know some states guns like that are really easy to not really easy, but they're easier to get than what they should be. Period. Especially because I believe that they even shouldn't be allowed to have anything like that. And I strongly believe that if we ban those guns and we make like a nationwide background check and make things more stricter, if people want to have like stronger shotguns or stronger rifles, things like that, I think there should be a something like, obviously it's not going to be perfect regardless, but like if you have been convicted of like a certain felony like assault and battery or something like that, like at least for the sake of the argument, I'm going to say at least 2 times. I don't think that that kind of a person should be in possession of any weapon or of any sort. Honestly, um, once again, some people may strongly disagree with that, but I think that just makes sense. Like if someone is like not mentally stable, I don't think they should be in charge of something that needs an owner that is mentally stable. And because if you're not mentally stable and you have a weapon like that, like as soon as your mental health tips over, things can go south really really quick.
So here's where we disagree a little bit. Obviously, I do think that we shouldn't allow people who are like mentally unstable to own guns, but I don't necessarily think we should restrict anyone from owning a gun if they've just been convicted of assault and battery, or even something like domestic abuse, which sounds terrible. Obviously, my first instinct there would be that this person shouldn't own a gun, but someone who has been a domestic abuser or has committed assault in the past. First of all, that doesn't mean they're still the same person. And second of all, they might be in an abusive relationship where there's abuse on both sides, and maybe the other person has an illegal gun, preventing that person from owning a gun could very well be sentencing them to death. And same thing with someone with a history of assault. Maybe they were in a gang, and there would be people out to get them. And again, they would really need to be able to defend themselves, and preventing that person from owning a gun is essentially sentencing them to death.
Okay, I think that is fair. I think that is a fair point. Like obviously, like nothing is gonna be perfect, like we agreed to last week. But I will say that, like, of course, I probably should have been more specific. Like nothing like I don't think it should be like oh, someone is just charged that they should not be able to own a gun. I feel like if they're charged, then there's not like any evidence suggesting that anyone forced them to do it, or that it was like in terms of like self-defense, things like that. So it'd be like a really specific thing, like what if they, like, in the past year they've committed or they've been charged 6 times with domestic violence. um like there's not like there and there's never like a scratch on them, anything like that. It's just like a one-sided just beat down. Do you think that person should at least get like at least like a couple of years banned from having weapons? Not like for their entire lives, because I do agree people can change for the better. Not always, but it is a possibility. But do you think they should at least, or there should be at least a like a um, like a ban in place in terms of like a temporary ban, like 2 years, 3 years, something like that? Do you think that would be better?
My instinct would be probably. Um, so two things again. They may very well be. This person may very well be an awful person. But unless they pose an immediate danger to others' lives, again, in the situations I mentioned, preventing them from owning a gun could very well be sentencing them to death. And the other thing is, uh, even if they've been, accused of domestic violence 6 times in the past 2 years or whatever you said, sometimes there are just false accusations, so
Right.
there may not be a scratch on them. But for instance, an uncle of mine, yeah, he has a bad habit of falling in love with crazy women, but uh, he's a very, very kind person. He wouldn't lay a finger on anyone, but an ex of his, uh, plenty of times had accused him of domestic violence. So again, my instinct in the scenario you gave would be probably, but I think this is the sort of thing that would have to be determined in an individual court case for each
Oh yeah.
questionable individual.
Right. Yeah. Like I also agree that everyone has different situations. Like people can falsely accuse others of assault and rape and things like that. Though, to clarify my point earlier, I was kind of meaning more like not only like not accused, but like accused, and there was like an investigation, and it was found that that's actually like uh, what happens with something a bit more stricter. And yeah, or even like in terms of if you want to bring the case to court, like if the person was found guilty like multiple times of a specific at least moderate violent crime, they should go to a federal judge. And a possibility for a punishment would be certain, like a certain amount of time without being allowed to own a gun. Do you think that would be
Yeah, that I could get behind. Like
like
I said,
okay?
I think because each case can have so many different nuances, it has to be something that's determined in an individual court case. All I was saying is I don't think we should be passing any laws that
That's
say,
that they're too
anyone who's
broad.
done this or anyone who's been accused of this.
Okay, yeah, I agree. I agree. So like it has to be more specific and not broad, right?
Yeah, that's what I
Okay,
was saying.
okay. No, I could definitely support that bill if it ever would come to be. Um, I think that's pretty much it. We don't disagree as much as we do on the pro-life, pro-choice thing. I'm curious to see what we disagree on that would be to that level. Um, that is equal importance because you believe in climate change as well, right?
Of course, at this point, anyone who doesn't believe in climate change is a bit nutty in my humble opinion.
No, I mean, hey, if you're being honest, you're being honest. But yeah, like that's one of my other big things. Like people don't believe that humans are affecting the environment at all. Some people don't. Still somehow. Um, and I'm not saying it's like I'm 100% believe it. Like I always leave room for a possibility that we could all be wrong, but you gotta believe in something. So when I truly believe in something, it's always like 99.9999. So like I would die for this cause, but I wouldn't become like a I wouldn't join a cult, for the climate change. That would be like you just closing your mind to the possibility of something else. But you cannot always live in like, oh, there's a 0.001 possibility that could be that we could all be wrong, so I'm just not going to try to enjoy or live my life at all. Like
Yeah, no,
that's
of
an extreme.
of course I agree. We should have strong convictions, but we should also always have the humility to accept we could be wrong.
Yeah, or even if it's near impossible, it could still happen. Like a near impossible thing could happen in the next second. You know, um, but yeah, it's like I think that's my other big thing. Th- but would you say, Rem, that, or would you agree that guns in this country are an issue right now?
That's kind of sounds kind of like a trap question. Depends on what you mean by an issue.
Like, do you think that, like, in terms of like ownership, like, you think there are people out there that have guns legally that they shouldn't probably own, like, with the amount of school shootings that the U.S. has compared to the rest of the world that has stricter gun policies? Um, do you think that there are things that should be done right now to that would help uh, that would help this country in terms of school shootings and things like that?
If you're asking, do I think there are people who legally own guns in this country who probably shouldn't, then absolutely, I agree. I think we obviously need better background checks and red flag laws. Um,
Agreed.
I think it's kind of crazy to say that we don't, just because, like you mentioned, school shootings have become so common. Of course, the other side of the coin, I think, is if more people owned guns, then mass shooters wouldn't be able to kill as many people. But I do accept that, on the other side of the coin, we can surely reduce the casualty rate just by preventing these, crazy individuals from owning guns in the first place.
Yeah, I think the people qualified to have guns should have guns, even if they don't really like to use them. It could come up in a self-defense way, like if they like legal guns, like, or guns should be legal, like a pistol, shotgun, things like that. um like, I think those who are good to have guns should have them, and I think the ones that shouldn't have guns, um or at least the ones that shouldn't be carrying guns like that shouldn't be carrying guns like that. If not, the ones that we talked about earlier, the more dangerous ones. So we need laws to help the people who are qualified, and to stop the people who are not qualified, pretty much.
For sure.
Well, there we go. Okay, I think that was much shorter than our last conversation, our last little debate. We're currently like 20 minutes in, and we've come to a pretty good agreement on, I think, most of it. Last time it was like a 55-minute of just me and you talking about pro life and pro choice, which is absolutely fine. It's just funny how much longer that one took to even come to um, a compromise in this one.
Yeah, well, like you said in the beginning, we clearly had a lot more we disagreed upon in that sense.
Correct. Correct. No, yeah, you're right. But now let's talk about something that is going to be coming up next year. Would you like to guess what it is, Ram?
Elections?
Elections, boy. Yeah, you got it. Um, are you excited to see Ron DeSantis and Donald Trump potentially debate, like
Oh
talk
my
smack to
god.
each other?
Oh my god.
Dude,
That'll be fun to watch.
dude, I swear, dude. If I'm awake, I'm probably gonna watch it. I'm probably gonna get some like popcorn with like tons of like butter and shit, and just watch that meltdown happen. I think it's gonna be a really entertaining election potentially next year. Obviously, the Republicans have quote unquote strong candidates for their party, like Donald Trump and
Yeah, quote
DeSantis,
unquote.
quote unquote. Yes, please emphasize the quote unquote. Um, the Democrats, I say, don't really have any strong candidates. Sadly, I don't
Oh
think
my
there's
god, yeah.
anyone that could potentially like. Not that the Republicans are doing better, just that the Democrats are just not doing anything. It seems like. Um, and I feel like they should be at least trying to guess someone to I don't know, like get behind at least one person, you know.
Well, yeah, look how that worked last time. Everyone reluctantly got behind Biden, a candidate that hardly anyone really liked.
I'm telling you, I would have voted for Bernie. I could vote. I think last election was the first one that I could vote. I didn't vote because the two like I obviously didn't want Trump to win, but I didn't want to vote for Biden. You
I
know.
voted for Joe Jorgensen, Libertarian Party candidate.
Yeah. Oh yeah. For you folks listening, Rem is actually this is a really funny duo podcast call out because I am an independent, so I'm technically neither, and Rem is
I'm
libertarian.
I'm also an independent, but I tend to lean libertarian.
Okay, okay, that is fair. From the things that we talked about, it definitely seems like you're definitely part independent for sure. Um, but yeah, I don't think I probably would vote for like because I'm thinking like if I'm like I think the only candidate that I can see being at least a decent potential or obvious runner would be KOC.
AOC.
AOC, thank you, AOC. Um, I think she wouldn't be awful. Probably better than Biden, honestly. But I think, like in my opinion, that the Republicans would use like not only the fact that elections usually go red and blue, so Republicans have us really much have the advantage, I would say, next year. Because one like a blue gets in the White House fucks up, then everyone doesn't want blue, everyone wants red. Gets there, fucks up, and everyone wants blue. So I think Republicans have the upper hand, and they can just use like the things that they usually say on like Fox News and stuff like, oh, you're gonna trust a woman to do this and to do that.
They say that
Um,
on Fox News.
I think when Hillary Clinton was running back in 2014, I watched some clips that they were saying like maybe not as much as I'm thinking, but they definitely emphasize like that women have like hot flashes and that they shouldn't be presidents. Like I like
Damn.
have you heard of Jordan Kepler?
No, I haven't.
Okay, I have to send you a freaking link. Jordan Kepler is um, really he's quite a funny guy, and he did these things where he went to these Trump rallies, and I'm guessing obviously he probably only included the really dumb people in the video instead of like the not so crazy dumb people. But the fact that there were enough dumb people to make as long as a video that he did is quite impressive and scary. One of them was a Trump supporter, I believe, back in 2014, and it was a woman that was like, I probably should remember to put links on the videos because I keep forgetting. Um, but you know, I got to live and learn, and I got to remind myself of that, and the links as well. But yeah, she said something like, you know, a woman, president is a man job. Women shouldn't really be presidents because they have, you know, they get really emotional and they can, and women, something about like women being like, something about women having a higher possibility of starting a war than men. And then Jordan was like, wasn't all wars caused by men? And then she said nothing. That was probably still one of my favorite clips, as of today. Like if you think about it, I'm pretty sure at least most wars have been started by men.
Probably. While we're on that topic, though, whether a woman could be president, while the Republican talking heads and some of the dumber Republicans might say that president is a man's job or whatever. What I actually found back in, I guess it was 2019, my dad and I really liked the Democratic uh primary candidate Amy Klobuchar, so we were doing some uh volunteer work for her campaign. One of
Damn.
the things we did, called up random people on a list and asked them if they'd consider voting for her. What I found is that those uh, Republicans said they would be willing to vote for a female candidate. It was actually Democrats who said basically they thought that she wasn't a viable candidate because Republicans wouldn't vote for a woman. So I think there's a bit of a disconnect there between the reality and the perceived reality.
Sounds like government to me, honestly. But I mean, I would definitely like do a bit of a like bigger research on her. But if she turns out to be like the best option that we get, like not a good option, but the best option we get, I would definitely be down to vote for her as well.
Yeah, well, like I said, my dad and I both really liked her back in 2019. My political views have shifted a little since then. I don't necessarily agree with her on so much anymore. Uh,
And who,
Nonetheless, I'd still consider her a more reasonable choice than half of the people will probably get.
dude, like I said, I would have voted for Bernie Sanders like last election. Like some of his ideas of like cancel college debt and things like completely, I think are a bit too much. I think it should be done more carefully. I think it should be drastically decreased, like the college debt. But I don't think it should be zero. Um, or at least that would be an idea that people here would get more behind with. Because you know how some Americans, mostly I'm guessing Republicans are about like things like healthcare for all. You know, oh Texas, you know, but yeah, like I would have voted for Bernie Sanders if he had made the or if he had been named like the Democrat nominee.
I wouldn't have.
Yeah, I mean, which is fine, you know. But like out of the two that we had in the end, I'm glad that the one that won. But I'm pretty sure he won not because people liked him, but because people didn't like the other guy. I think that's the
Oh yeah,
main reason why he won.
Biden's only thing he campaigned on was, "I'm not Trump."
And it was still a close race. I don't know how. I mean, I guess because people didn't like Biden, so they voted for Trump. Um, yeah, but I hope this one we have better choices. We're probably not gonna get any decent choices, but my God, I hope it's better than whatever we have. Because I mean, I'm pretty sure the Republican nominees already pretty much determines it's either gonna be Trump or gonna be DeSantis, and I think DeSantis might win.
Like I said, I would totally watch that debate.
Jesus, I
Just
would too.
I don't like either of them, but DeSantis seems a lot smarter, or at least he can sell himself as smarter than Trump. So I'd just like to see him smash Trump in a debate.
Oh yes, yes, Ron the Sanctimonious. You know that's what Trump is one of Trump's nicknames for him, right?
Oh, I didn't know that.
Ron the Sanctimonious. That's the
Appropriate
like
though.
say whatever you want about Trump. His nickname game is so fucking funny, dude. The guy can be an entertaining clown sometimes. He reminds me of Andrew Tate
Oh
a
my
little bit.
god.
Yeah. Remember when I sent you a video so you could learn who Andrew Tate was?
I don't remember that specifically, but I do remember last autumn when like I'd never heard of Andrew Tate and suddenly he's the topic of every conversation.
Oh yeah.
I did some research on that myself and ugh.
Yeah, guy is not great, but once again, he's an entertaining clown sometimes, dude.
Oh yeah, he's charismatic. That's why people love him. Same thing with Trump.
Yeah,
Same thing with Bernie Sanders, honestly.
I'm guessing you heard that Trump got indicted,
I did hear that, yes.
and that he's been reportedly like he's already taken the plane to New York, and that he's going to. No, I think he already did. He went to the judge or whatever, and he pleaded not guilty to all charges. So that should be fun because if you have a criminal charge, you cannot run for president, right? Or something like that.
I'm not sure.
I think that's how it, I think that's how it works. But like once again, I could be wrong.
It might be if it's a felony charge, because I can't imagine that someone who was arrested at 18 for shoplifting is you know permanently barred from running for office.
Yeah, yeah. I guess that would be a bit silly, but that does make sense. Um, what else? I kind of had something that I wanted to say. Oh yeah. So there was I think Lindsey Graham. Someone said something about how people should. I think he said he went on Fox News and asked the viewers to either pray for Trump or send like a little money to him.
Oh god, as if Trump needs money.
I mean, honestly, dude, he probably does. Like, you never know. Like, he may talk big, but like he lied to Forbes before and got into like the top 100 like billionaire list or whatever. He could be like borderline like on the verge of bankruptcy, but as long as he can sell his $100 NFTs to some people that just for some reason really want that somewhere or anywhere inside their house, dude's probably gonna be
Not
floating somewhere.
inside their house, in cyberspace, where everyone can. NFTs or something else, man.
People have become like millionaires from just selling that.
I know it's bizarre. It reminds me of stories of people will buy a blank canvas, a blank white
They
canvas for
did.
$1 million just
There's
because.
a museum for invisible paintings. People pay money to look at white walls, Remy.
Oh my god,
People
people are
pay
dumb.
money to just like I think I saw this on Facebook or Instagram. Like there's a museum for specifically invisible paintings that people will pay money to go watch, or not watch or see or whatever. Like, what goes on inside someone's brain to like go inside and just pay like $20 to stare to walk while staring at like a wall?
That is totally out there.
Dude, land of opportunity, dude. I'm telling you. If there are people that would just do that, making money is definitely out there. Just gotta find a way to get to it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, the only part of the election that I'm probably excited about is just watching the Ron DeSantis and Donald Trump debate. Or if we don't get that, I would like to see Trump's mugshot this year. That'd be fucking. Dude, that would be trending everywhere.
Oh yeah.
Twitter, Instagram. That would be topic of conversation for weeks. It'd be like Republican crying, Democrats like celebrating. It would be a shit show. It would be a shit show, dude. Yeah, that's about it. Do you have anything that you want to mention or talk about the election next year?
Yeah, I one thing I really liked about last election in 2020, last presidential election, was the number of uh, Democratic candidates who ran in the primary and their the diversity of viewpoints there. So I hope we get something like that again. And honestly, last election, the the Democratic debates were pretty entertaining. They were pretty entertaining. Um, as far as who I would vote for, um, it's not going to be Biden, it's not going to be Trump, and it's not going to be DeSantis. Honestly, at this point, the number of people I would vote for in either party are probably like I either the Republicans or the Democrats are probably down to like three.
That's three more. That's like two more than me right now. So
otherwise, back to the Libertarian Party because at least they have morals.
I mean, do you think they have more morals because they know that they can usually like say whatever they want without having to worry about um being elected and then having to live up to those expectations? Like, do you think if
Oh,
they had
oh,
more power, they would be different?
oh! There's certainly an aspect if the Libertarians don't take themselves seriously at all. The vermin supreme with the boot on his head and all that.
Dude, classic, classic. I do think having two parties is a bit sad
Oh, it's
for
so
a
sad.
country as big as America. You have two sides. That's like only having like one type of currency or like one type of physical currency. Like imagine only having $1 bills. Yeah, that or sorry, or two types of currencies. You either get $1 bills or $100 bills. You know, that'd be insane. That would be absolutely insane.
Yeah,
But here we are.
and at this point, I think it's like 75% and growing is the number of Americans who say they would prefer a third party option, but it just doesn't happen because we have a politics of fear is what we have.
Of course, and fear sells.
Oh yeah, fear sells.
Fear, fear. Yeah, fear is it was quite evident when we had when COVID really hit first, and people were going to stores and like wrestling over toilet paper and shit for like no reason. It was going for like $20 on Amazon or some shit. It was crazy. It was crazy in 2020. We were fine. We didn't have to kill anyone for toilet paper that year.
Yeah.
It was nice and peaceful.
Yeah, I think we were talking about this last time too. I don't know if it was on the book, but essentially I feel like humans are inherently good, but the fact we're highly motivated by fear. So when fear comes into the equation, people will do pretty stupid stuff like, I don't know, keep electing bad candidates because, well, at least they're not as bad as the other guy.
Yeah, when your options are bad or worse, it's not really a good system.
Yeah, actually, I want to bring up an interesting point there. Since we have the Electoral College, I mean, the idea of voting for the lesser of two evils is you're not going to spoil the vote, so to speak, spoil the election. But because of the Electoral College system, if you live in a thoroughly blue state like Massachusetts or California, or a thoroughly red state like, I don't know, Texas or Alabama
Or Florida.
or Florida at this point, yeah, then it really, honestly, your vote's not going to matter either way. You can vote for, take Massachusetts as the example.
Yeah.
You can vote for whoever the Democratic candidate's going to be. It doesn't matter because they're already going to win Massachusetts electoral votes. You can vote for whoever the Republican candidate's going to be. It's not going to matter because they're already going to win. I mean, they're already not going to win any. So I figure the most meaningful thing you can do is vote third party and just make it a protest vote. At the very least, if enough people do that, maybe people will start to see third parties, the libertarians, the Greens, what have you, as more viable options.
Yeah, like like my mother was telling me, like obviously, like things happen where like some like 100 votes could count, but
Yeah,
at the
but
same
not
time,
not in Massachusetts.
yeah, like you're saying, like in Massachusetts usually goes blue anyway, so like it almost feel it's kind of pointless, and I think that might be why many people don't even vote. Is because they're probably like, well, like I want to vote for, I don't know, Bernie Sanders, but I'm in Florida, so like you know what I mean, like or yeah.
Yeah, and their reasoning for that is certainly solid. If why go out of their way? However, like I said, I think the most meaningful thing you can do is just make it a protest vote. Show people potentially, if a couple thousand people uh, are thinking the same thing across the state, and we can get libertarian or the Green candidate to get, I don't know, 8 or 10% of the vote. We can show people that, or at least get people more in the mindset that third parties might actually be viable.
Yeah, because I'm thinking like the people that out of all the people that can vote and don't, that makes a pretty good percentage.
Oh yeah, turnout turnout for presidential elections in this country, I think, usually falls between like 50 and 65% of eligible voters.
That leaves like a really reasonable, like a really like even candidate winning gap
Oh
or
yeah,
potential for someone in another party to win. You know what? I may actually go. I may do that. I may do a protest vote and just vote for a third party of my choosing. I
I
might do
would
that.
I would encourage it. I
And
would
I'm just gonna
encourage
post the shit out of it on like Twitter and Instagram
it.
and Facebook because I think having a third party could make things much more open. Um, like, of course, you have your extreme of one side, extreme of the other, but that's still two sides, And I think that adding one more could really balance things out,
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. It doesn't even matter who it is. Just having more voices on the table is going to be beneficial for this country.
right? No, yeah, right. I am actually I may definitely do that. So yeah, well, here's to 2024, right?
It's gonna be a fun show to watch.
Oh yes, yes it is. Well, I don't we don't elections start this year or is it next year?
Um,
Is
you
it is
might
it
see that the primary election season usually starts in uh sometimes autumn or winter of the year before.
okay? So the shit's gonna get real this year already, huh? Halloween's gonna be a spooky season. Huh? Yeah. Well, here's to that. Here's to hopefully a better presidential election than last time. Honestly. So now let's go into a bit more of a darker topic: the current war currently happening in Russia and Ukraine. It's a mess. It's been lasting. It's for way too long. It's weird. I found it so weird that Russia didn't immediately take over Ukraine because of how big Russia is and how big their military is compared to Ukraine. So either they really have a really bad military, or this is just part of like a more elaborate plan.
I think they just underestimated. Uh, we were just talking about fear cells, fear of losing basically your entire life, your country, your home, everything you've known. That's gonna motivate you to fight.
No, that's true. That's true. If the options are either die or like die or like or like if you have no other options besides fighting, and yeah, and there's the potential of you losing your home, your family, everything that you could even care about, then I think like I said, I think that can really motivate people like a
Yeah,
lot.
whereas the Russian soldiers aren't aren't very motivated at all. They're wondering why they've been drafted into a meaningless war. So I think motivation is a powerful factor there, and that's why even though Russia's military is what, like 10 times, 100 times the size of Ukraine's, that's why Ukraine has held out for so long.
Yeah, that is quite impressive for sure. Though something related to that war is China. China has been
Ooh.
getting a bit sneaky recently. I think they went to South America. They retied some ties with Brazil. They retied some other ties with a different country, and they're trying to. I think I'm not sure exactly what country it was. I think it was in South America, but is that they're trying to do something where like you can exchange currency without having to use like because like I think dollar is the most prominent uh, currency or like
Worldwide.
yeah I think or something like that. And I think China is trying to weaken its value because if people out there use it less, its value is gonna drop,
Hmm.
at least a little bit.
Hmm.
So, yeah, China's getting a bit sneaky.
Yeah, and I hadn't heard about the what China's been doing in South America, but I have read about what they've been doing in the Middle East, kind of fostering peace deals, and again the same thing, currency exchange, which excludes the U.S. dollar, and of course just the fostering peace part. What the U.S. has tried and failed to do in the Middle East for years. Uh, that's definitely indicates a big power shift.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And I think that's also part of like North Korea, China's, and Russia's plans to kind of not make us so America's like the number one like superpower in the world. And when you have countries like that with really bad human rights laws, it's really easy to change the tides more to your way because then you don't have to follow um, as strict of laws and policies as America has.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, and they're also doing some things in Africa too. They're like starting to build things in Africa, like paying, like giving like the presidents or whoever is in charge of each country there like money and building infrastructure there, and
Hmm.
getting probably something in return like oil or some natural resources. But what do you think?
Um, yeah. So I think obviously, fostering peace, helping countries build infrastructure, that's obviously beneficial, but um, it increases China's influence, China's sway, and like you mentioned, I think it's the ultimate goal is to create a world where basically human rights abuses uh, are more tolerated. I think that's the end goal. And Russia and North Korea don't really scare me. China definitely scares me a lot more. Russia's essentially a country in decline, and North Korea's shut themselves off from the world. They can't really grow, but what China's doing for sure.
Yeah, so I'm kind of reading some headlines here that China held a I think it was today. It says here China held a military drills around Taiwan. Um, Apparently, they sent about 71 warplanes as a military drill. Um, do you think that there's a good chance that they may invade Taiwan in the next like 2 years or so?
Um, I'm no expert on the topic. It certainly seems plausible. Certainly seems plausible.
Yeah, I
I think
mean,
I think China's waiting to see what happens with Ukraine. I think uh I think they're using Russia as the Russia Ukraine war as a guinea pig, testing the waters.
yes, I definitely think, and honestly, like that would make like in a way that would make sense to like seeing like the war's been raging for a while now, and nothing really, I think, extreme has been done to Russia as it should have been. What I learned from that was where we've been relying on. or yeah, we and mostly Europe has been relying on Russia for oil and energy way more than they should have. Like there was like a huge fear in Europe of like cutting ties with Russian like oil and coal energy or just power in general because of how much they needed it. And it's just sad
Mm-hmm.
that it came to that. Like it's just sad that they were not prepared for a country like Russia. Like I would get if it was like a more friendly country, but what like they never expected Russia to like go wild and then leading to them not being able to rely on them anymore because that would technically be helping the enemy. Uh, I think it was just really silly and dumb to not have at least a plan B, like more like I get that Russia has a like is a bit, it's like big and has like a quite a bit of oil and stuff, but I definitely think that like countries like France, Germany, Spain, they could have been starting to like do more like renewable energy sources at
France
least.
France has been relatively okay because of their like 70-75% of their grid is nuclear powered. So but I'm taking it off the rails a little here, but why was Europe so reliant on Russian oil when the Russia-Ukraine war hit? Because they haven't been doing what they should have been doing for the past several decades, which is building as many nuclear power plants as possible.
Which is a bit hard. Like we talked about this before. Renewable energies, and um, I definitely think that nuclear could potentially be better. Especially, I think people. I'm not sure how true it was, but they were. I think they figured out, or they were starting to figure out for nuclear fusion. They only figured. I think they were only able to do it for like less than a second, so it would take like a long time potentially for something like that to happen.
I think the most recent is a sustained net energy output for like 15 seconds, which is clearly, we're getting there slowly but surely, but we're not there yet. I think we need to focus on the energies we have. And the other thing is that even nuclear fusion requires, I think it's hydrogen 3, which in order to get energy out of that, in order to do the nuclear fusion, which is actually in limited supply. But one thing that creates the hydrogen 3, and I think as a couple other elements they need for the nuclear fusion, it's a byproduct of nuclear fission. So I think even if we figure out nuclear fusion, we'll still need to kind of supplement it with nuclear fission.
Potentially, I also think that if we or if people or if governments were able to um, or if they invested more money in the nuclear side of things. I don't, I don't think there's a lot of money being invested currently, and anything nuclear I think mainly due to the fear, and once again fear coming up again, to the fear of the past accidents that have happened, even though they were extreme. People can be like we've seen multiple times. People can really be extreme about things that they are scared of. So I definitely think it's technically better potentially for the environment than even renewable energies such as like solar and wind. But I think it's harder to sell for the people the due to the amount of just fear that it has brought over the years with the very few but very widespread nuclear incidents.
Absolutely. I think fear, the association of nuclear power with accidents like Chernobyl and also with nuclear weapons is probably the number one reason why countries haven't been, especially countries in Europe like Germany, Poland, what have you, haven't been building lots of nuclear power plants over the past few decades. But I think the tide is shifting. I feel like a lot of younger people, millennials and Gen Z, are more open to nuclear power on average. So I think we're seeing that uh, shift, and obviously, in my opinion, it's a shift in the right direction. I think as grim as it is to say, the energy problems Europe has been having, maybe just the wake up call for countries that they should be building more nuclear power and shouldn't be relying so much on in this case Russian gas, but also Germany and Poland have a lot of coal uh, and stuff like that.
No, yeah, and a- as you were talking, I came across this article. I think when was this? This was April 7th. Oh, it was actually yesterday. There was apparently leaks from a Minnesota nuclear power plant that raised safety concerns across fears across the U.S. That was the headline, but then right underneath it in bold, it stated that the leaks were contained and posed no danger. Official reports say, but past disasters continue to cause fears of power source. And once again, I think that these leaks could be avoided if there was more money going into the upkeep of
Oh
these
yes,
nuclear power
certainly,
plants.
certainly.
Yeah, it's also not really helping the fear when you have potentially poor equipment, and obviously it's gonna fail sometimes, and that just raises the fear of those who already have it.
Yeah. I think we have sufficient regulations on nuclear power in this country, but I don't think it would hurt to have even more regulations just because, if fear is the biggest thing stopping us from building more nuclear power plants, then reducing that fear as much as possible is going to be a good thing. So even if it doesn't even if it doesn't really make nuclear power in this country any safer than it already is, because it's already pretty damn safe, uh, it's probably going to be a good thing if it makes people feel safer.
Okay, I I agree, but now what would you say about, like, if there was, wouldn't you say that having a nuclear plant would be more dangerous in terms of like a terrorist attack that managed to, like a terrorist that managed to infiltrate like the nuclear plant and then just like plants bombs and things like that? Like, wouldn't that potentially pose a threat to that place, wherever that nuclear plant is?
So that's a good question. Um, the first thing I want to say is that nuclear power plants in this country, at least, are heavily guarded, and quite frankly, there would if you're a terrorist and you want to kill as many people as possible, there are easier ways to cause a lot more damage than by attacking a nuclear power plant. Um, Number two, it's a common myth that, mm, well, I'm not sure it's a common myth, but as far as the association of nuclear power with nuclear bombs, it's actually the material used in the nuclear power plant is different. The uranium only needs to be refined to about 5% U-235, which is the fissile isotope of uranium. That's what they need to do the reactions. Whereas for use in a bomb, it needs to be refined to, I think, 80 or 90%.
So it's much more. Does that mean that it's much more condensed, or is it just like what does the percentage entail?
Um, yeah, so natural uranium ore is mostly U-238, I think, which is not the fissile isotope. You can't use it for reactions. The part of the ore you use for reactions is the U-235, and that's for both use in nuclear power plants and in nuclear bombs. But for use in a nuclear power plant, it only needs to be about 5% U-235, whereas for use in a bomb, it needs to be like 90%. And again, in natural uranium ore, I think it's like 0.7% is how much of it is U-235.
So, just for those who are not as entailed in science as you and me might be, an isotope is a just a different variant of a element.
Yes.
So pretty much like different types of hydrogen. Nothing really is really coming to mind right now. I don't think I remember many, but like hydrogen is usually no. What is two on the periodic table? It
I think is it helium? I think it might be helium.
Let's say helium. Helium is, I think it's yes, number two. It has, I believe, one proton and
No,
one
so the
no
number
two
on the periodic table is the number of protons,
protons.
and then the number after, like we were talking about hydrogen 3 or U-235 versus U-238, that's
That's
the number of
electrons.
total. That's the number of total nucleons, which includes both protons and neutrons. So uh, hydrogen is typically hydrogen 1, I think, which is just one proton. Hydrogen 3 would be one proton and two neutrons. So that the element, the number on the periodic table is the number of protons. And then when we're talking about isotopes, variants of the element, the number after the element is the number of total protons and neutrons combined.
I thought that was the atomic weight, and then the number of electrons was what determined the isotope, because it would either make it negative or positive, right?
No, so that determines whether it's an ion or not.
Ion. Okay, thank you, thank you.
Yes.
I was confusing the two. Ions and isotopes are a
I
bit
don't
different.
blame you. I don't blame you.
Yeah, those
I
are
the only reason I know is because I'm like super into nuclear energy, so
no, no,
as you
yeah,
can
that
probably tell.
as I can probably tell, and probably everyone else can probably listening can probably tell as well. Um, but so it's just like so it's heavier, right? Like the more neutrons and protons you add to an atom, the heavier technically it is,
Yes,
because
yes.
because the atomic mass or atomic weight is bigger because you have more of
Yeah.
those two. Okay. So when you said 5%, that means that you only that is it's a much smaller density than to make like an actual bomb, right? Like you need less of this type of uranium on a nuclear power plant compared to like a nuclear bomb.
Yes. So like I said, the uranium ore naturally contains, don't quote me on this, I think it's like 0.7% of it is the fissile isotope U-235. So it needs to be refined for both use in a nuclear power plant or in a nuclear bomb. Um, you refine it to about 5%. You can use it in a nuclear power plant. You have to refine it to like 90% for use in a bomb.
Oh, I see.
So even if a terrorist were to attack a nuclear power plant, it wouldn't explode like a nuclear bomb. Uh,
Now, don't you think that even though it may not cause, like you said before, that it could cause, like there are easier ways to cause more destruction, but wouldn't you say uh, that in terms of like longer lasting damage, a nuclear power plant could potentially do more? Like when we look at like things like or places like Chernobyl that are still radioactive and not recommended for anyone to live in. Wouldn't you say that a nuclear power plant, in terms of like a long term thing, like Chernobyl, would potentially be more dangerous than something like, I don't know, like blowing up a building or something?
so in the case of Chernobyl, it's certainly longer lasting. The difference is, or one of the differences is that the Chernobyl nuclear power plant that blew up, I forget if it was number 3 or number 4 that blew up, but it did not have what's called a containment building, whereas all modern nuclear power plants, I believe globally, but especially in this country, they all have containment buildings, so they're inherently safer in that way. And uh, the containment buildings can withstand pretty much anything. They've done tests on these, which I think involved crashing a plane into them, and the containment building is fine. The plane's blown to smithereens. The containment building is fine. So if you're a terrorist and you want to, cause lots of harm, and you decide that you want to do it by attacking a nuclear power plant, basically what you'd need to do is take some of the radioactive material outside of the containment building, um, in order to cause any lasting damage. So while it's theoretically possible, again, that a terrorist
Do that.
could attack a nuclear power plant and potentially, cause harm, increase the cancer rate in the surrounding cities or whatever, it would be incredibly difficult, and there would be easier ways to kill far more people. So it's technically feasible, but not likely.
But in terms of the damage that the radioactivity could cause, you still think that for someone like a terrorist, it would still be, it would not be like the option that a terrorist would look for when they're trying to commit an act of
Yes,
terrorism.
yes.
Okay. Okay. That makes sense. So you said that in Chernobyl they didn't have these containment, uh,
Yeah, the nuclear power plants at Chernobyl did not have a containment building around the nuclear reactor itself.
so what would you think would be the difference if they had a containment building around the nuclear reactor?
So if the nuclear power plant at Chernobyl, uh, if it had a containment building, I think the change would be the only people who would be negatively affected by it would be the workers inside the nuclear power plant at the time. So rather than, I think the World Health Organization and the International Atomic Energy Association estimate the total death toll from Chernobyl due to increased cancers and stuff like that at 4,000 people. Yeah, that would be more like 4.
So a containment building really makes like a big difference.
Yeah, it prevents, if the reactor overheats and blows up, it prevents it from
Being as bad.
affecting anything outside the containment building, essentially.
I see. No, I think that's something that people should know more about. That
Oh, absolutely.
people that the Chernobyl power plant wasn't exactly the best in terms of structure, and also the Japan one. Japan is a country that suffers heavily from earthquakes and tsunamis. So you're dealing with nature there. So I think, would you say that in a place like Japan, it would be a bit more dangerous to build things like nuclear power plants because of the constant earthquake and tsunamis in certain areas?
So with Fukushima, it was a similar problem to what Chernobyl. So the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant did have a containment building. I can't remember the specifics, but there was something besides the nuclear reactor itself which should have been inside the containment building, but was outside the containment building. Um, but again, the Fukushima disaster was significantly smaller than Chernobyl. It's hard to estimate how many people may have been impacted by radiation, but the estimates for the Fukushima death toll are anywhere from like 0 to 70. So that's obviously a lot less than 4,000. And of course,
Oh yeah.
it's awful that humanity needs a disaster to learn our lessons sometimes. But I think in the case of nuclear power, we have learned our lessons, and I don't think we'll ever see another person die as a result of a nuclear accident related to nuclear power.
If the structure and the restrictions and the personnel are done, built, and just like it, as long as everything is done well, like the
Mm-hmm.
structure is done well, the containment building is on the right place,
Mm-hmm.
the power plant is in the correct place, the personnel know what they're doing and
Hmm.
how to do it, which obviously should be, well, probably is the case, or definitely is the case for multiple things like around the globe, you know. Okay, no. So I I would definitely be open to voting for something that would further enhance or what's the word I'm looking for? That would further
Subsidize?
that would further. Damn, I'm really blinking out on this one word. Boost. I'm just gonna go with boost. That would boost the speed of nuclear power usage in this country and potentially around the world as well. One day, I know we're running a bit thin on time here, but one day, speaking of power sources, one thing I'm kind of hoping that would be really cool for us to use that it's been done. I think I've been told it's been done on a TV show and movies, Star Trek, is the antimatter concept of using that as an energy source. It's even more. It's like if people think the nuclear power is dangerous, antimatter is like world destroying thing. Like if or matter as a antimatter is as a world destroying substance because as soon as it comes into contact with matter, it blows up. And many people, many scientists even estimate or they have what do you say? They have hypothesized that it was the combination of matter and antimatter that started the Big Bang. And I mean, right now, having 1 gram of antimatter, I think, is like a couple $1 trillion overall in value. We've not been able to make anywhere near that. But just so you folks know, antimatter is such a powerful force that when let's say you have like a tablespoon, I think, of antimatter, even like if you could somehow get that much, but it would definitely blow up if you touched it with with a teaspoon or tablespoon because we're all technically made of matter. If you could hold it into like I think it's a magnetic field that they are theorizing that we could hold it because it's not touching matter potentially, and you dropped it on like a cup of coffee in New York, it would level the whole city apparently.
Wait, and you think we should be using this as a power
I mean,
source?
listen, I'm not saying that like right now, obviously, but because like
If we understand it.
if we understand it, and in theory, yes, it could destroy humanity, but it could also be what we need to like explore planets, or not even that. Like obviously, even if we go at the speed of light, in theory, it would take us beyond lifetimes to get to certain places. So obviously, in terms of traveling, wormholes is the obvious answer here, but that's just way more complicated, probably, and way more dangerous in terms of making sure that something gets at the right place at the right time and not distorted. But I think it's the next step of in terms of power usage. I think nuclear fusion and fission are good because, especially fusion, because that's what happens in the sun, pretty much, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I definitely think that is a very good next step for us after, or even a little bit combined with solar and wind, if done better. Um, though antimatter is like I think I was looking at a picture years ago, and it was it was comparing a rocket using hydrogen as a fuel and a rocket using antimatter as fuel, and it was kind of like it had some information about how long it would travel or how fast it would travel and how long it could travel during certain like a set time. I'm gonna see if I can find it here. So yeah, so I mean, this is not exactly it, but this is really interesting. It's a picture here with the efficiency of propulsion methods. Nuclear fusion and fission are 40%. So I guess that probably not be great for uh, using it in like a rocket or something. Ion drive ion drive is at 65%, I think. Solar sail, it's at 90, I think. And antimatter and matter, which is obviously you use matter and you make it contact or touch matter, and it creates explosion energy, and that's how you get your fuel. That's 100% of the energy. So like nothing is lost. Like whatever you put into it is exactly what you're getting out of it. If you put the amount of matter and antimatter, um, like if you put the right amount of both. Damn man, I cannot seem to find it now for some reason. The one that I'm looking for. Damn, that does suck. Yeah, antimatter converts all of its mass to energy, the ultimate rocket fuel. Right now, the estimated cost for, I'm guessing that as fuel, is $60 quadrillion per kilogram. And it's funny because it says here plus tax. Uh, and and honestly, that's just ridiculous. And once again, we've not been able to make even 1 gram allegedly of antimatter. There are many mysteries around it, like why we cannot see it anywhere in the visible universe. Or maybe there's a whole universe made of antimatter that we don't know about. Um, but yeah, antimatter is just fascinating to me. I did a whole project on it on English class, uh, and yeah, I just think just the aspect of antimatter is really cool. What do you think, Ram?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, seems like the technology is probably a few centuries out, whereas for nuclear fusion, it's maybe a few decades, and nuclear fission is already there. But like you said, for interstellar travel, maybe that's what we need.
Yeah, potentially, and not even that. It's like even if we get to like light speed, it was still like one could not make a trip in in their lifetime. So like it's obviously like I said, wormholes is definitely the way to go. Like the easiest way between the farthest point of like a piece of paper is if you just fold the paper, in half and make
Yeah,
like
that's a metaphor I've seen before.
yeah. I think that's the most like popular one. But okay, so here we have. I finally found it, and I might actually post this somewhere if I can. So with chemical propulsion methods to get to Mars, it would take months. With antimatter, it would take weeks. And this is all hypothetical, but it's it definitely makes sense. And I think that this is not maybe 100% accurate, but this is pretty damn close. With chemical fuel, it would take years to get to Pluto. With antimatter, it would take months to get to Alpha Centauri, which is I think the closest alleged or theorized
Livable planet.
livable planet, or just I think it's a combination. There's like apparently there's two suns and a potential living habitable planet. Um, but um, but yeah, for that it would take like thousands of years, but with antimatter it would take only about 40 years or so. But yeah, and I think we've run through quite a few interesting topics here, from antimatter fuel to politics to uh, a bit of gun safety, and I guess even nuclear energy. And it was a whole ride, Remy. I'll say it was a whole ride. Um, and I honestly, once again, I thoroughly enjoyed it. Thank you very much for joining me again, a second week in a row. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did, and I hope the audience also enjoyed it as much as we did as well.
Of course.
Well, this has been episode 11 of the Off the Rose podcast. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you very much for your patience and your time. This has been your host, Gregory. And once again, with great pleasure, my co host, Rem. Do you have any parting words for our audience, Rem?
Not that I can think of.
Anything motivational that you'd like to say?
Oh, you put me in the spot here.
Absolutely, boy. Let's go.
All right, motivation of the day. The key to happiness is focus on the things you can change.
Okay. Well, there we go. This is that 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 was pretty good, Ram. See, putting people on the spot sometimes tests your ability to come up with things on the spot. Just don't do that. Don't do that to me. Uh, but once again, thank you very much for listening. Please like and subscribe if you're listening on YouTube. If you're listening on anything else, please rate it. Anything you think that like any honest thoughts or opinions that you have about this podcast, please just leave it. Um, if you have any comments, anything that you'd like to tell us, any questions, please do ask. We will even try to answer them potentially on the next episodes after the question is posted. And yeah, I think that is pretty much it. Thank you for listening. This has been Off the Roast Podcast, episode 11. Your host, Gregory, as always, and your co host, Rem. Thank you very much for listening, and I hope you all have a great day. Thank you.